Okay, so this came across my timeline and I wanted to take a look at it with y'all. Unpopular MCU opinions you probably won't agree with. Well, let's see what you got. Spider Man No Way Home is overhyped. Why fans disagree? Love for nostalgia. Counterpoint great cameos mid story. Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with you on that. Like, let's be honest, we've had three live action Spider Man, and this is the most complete story overall for Peter Parker. Where the cameos great, yes, the cameos were great to the point that even gave us a little bit more closure to our original two Spider-Men. But story wise, a Peter who literally is brought to literally the brink, someone who had everything, literally handed the world to him, right? That was always the big issue about this MCU Peter Parker was, oh, he's, just baby Iron Man Jr. Well, unfortunately, that's how the MCU was set up. And so they stripped all that from him. Not only did he recently lose his mentor, but then he loses the only other family figure that he had. And then he has to give up everybody else to save the multiverse. Nah, I'm sorry. It is not a mid story. Guardians Volume 2 is better than Volume 1. Why fans disagree? First had novelty, counterpoint, the sequel had deeper emotion. I honestly have never heard this argument. Like, at least for me, I've always thought Volume 2 was better than Volume 1. Volume 1 was good. Like I said, the novelty's there because it introduced us to the Guardians of the Galaxy for those of us who aren't as deep comic book fans as others. And frankly, Guardians of the Galaxy weren't that popular even in their own comics. So, yeah, it's great, but definitely Volume 2 had way more emotion and Volume 3 added to that. Shang-Chi is top 5 MCU origin stories. Why fans disagree, some call it average. Who the F is calling this movie average? Yeah, fight choreography and family themes were absolutely elite, and it's a shame they haven't done more with Shang-Chi since this movie. I'm actually rather pissed off. Like, I'm glad Simu's going to be in the next, Avengers movie, but it's just like, okay, what stakes do you have in this besides that maybe the multiverse is at risk? So honestly, if his second outing isn't as great, that's MCU's fault and not honestly his. Civil War made Tony look more reasonable than Steve. That's BS. Why fans disagree? Fans side with Cap. That's the point. Counterpoint, Tony actually had logic on his side. No, he didn't. He was a crybaby who wanted everybody else to pay for his mistakes. And I have a whole video about his little tantrum when he finds out that Steve was hiding the fact that Bucky killed his parents. I mean, dude was brainwashed. You're a big baby. Because Cap made a great argument. What happens when they want to send us someplace that we don't agree going with? Which is exactly what happened. And at the end of the day, people need to realize that was Captain America Civil War, not Avengers Civil War. That movie was a Captain America movie. Phase 4 didn't flop, expectations did. Why fans disagree? Fans say MCU fell off. Counterpoint, it focused on grief, identity, and rebuilding. You make this argument while you're showing love and thunder. That's the problem. So I agree with you in essence, because when you actually look at the totality of Phase 4, there are very good projects within Phase 4. There are also some major sinkers, this one being one of them. Wanda's Vision's finale wasn't disappointing. Why fans disagree? People wanted a big reveal. Counterpoint, it was always about grief and not Mephisto. Yeah, I agree with that. I've never heard people say it was a disappointing finale. I've heard people say they were upset that Mephisto wasn't revealed because, as we all know, Mephisto is inherently tied to her kids. So the fact that he wasn't revealed was kind of disappointing. At the same time, though, her beating Agatha, stripping her of her powers, locking her away, getting stronger in her magic. The only disappointing part to me was her falling into the trap of the Darkhold, which then at that point leads into Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and just a throwaway line about how, anyone who reads that book is corrupted. And lastly, Eternals was ambitious and visually stunning. Why fans disagree? Seen as boring. Counterpoint, it dared to be different, not predictable. That's That's interesting because I can understand people saw it as boring because it was a slow burn. It is a movie that does basically take like an Oscar worthy approach towards storytelling for, Marvel superheroes. But most people disagree with it because honestly, the Eternals were Eternals only in name and not exactly what Jack Kirby wrote. And this is from someone like me who I actually go and read the comics basically when a new movie's coming out. So the Eternals actually had a new run going out with Marvel Comics that I picked up and read, which was great, and it led into the X-Men versus the Eternals versus the Avengers, which was also another great event. And so getting to see that small glimpse of who the Eternals were compared to what we got in the movie, that's why most fans were upset. At least those who read the comics. Those who don't read comics, yeah, they are probably upset because they weren't getting the MCU formula, which at that point is pretty standard at this point. But those are all the Marvel hot takes. I agree with some, disagree with others. What do y'all think? Let me know in the comments, and then we can keep talking about it. Other than that, I love y'all. Have a great day. Peace.